baby's home. Cairo, Cairo is my baby's home. One bite Cairo now won't be long. Women in Cairo, they will treat you kind and sweet. Women in Cairo, they will treat you kind and sweet. Catch you riding and take you off your feet. Shoot you, knock you, teach you and cut you too. Shoot you and knock you, teach you and cut you too. They get through the graveyard then for you. Women in Cairo send you down to your grave.
And hello everybody. Good evening from Sweden. It's 9 p.m. here, and I guess it's different hours in your time zones. Today's show is going to be a blast because I'm bringing in John Miller, one of my guitar heroes and distinguished colleagues, who's going to be talking about his musicianship, guitar playing, and I have loads of questions prepared for him, and I hope we're going to have some great time together. I see some familiar faces here. Hello, Geir. Great to see you here today as well. Geir has been with us from the beginning. This is the 13th live stream, so it better not be the unlucky one. But it's okay. It's not a Friday. It's Monday. Snowing Ohio. Give me a break, Mila. All right. How did the gig go? Hello, Tony. Nice to see you here. Anders, it's been a long time. Welcome. All right, while people are kind of coming in and saying hi, let me just ask you to put the letter Q and a colon if you want to ask John Miller something, because that's going to be making it easier for me to find it in the list of whatever you guys are writing in the chat, because sometimes people talk to each other in the chat while I'm playing maybe or something. So just make sure you're putting the Q and colon before the question. Hello, Darman. Great to see you guys. All right. So the whole thing about today's show is I'm going to be playing a welcome song. Then I'll be bringing in John Miller. For a nice and long talk. If you guys want to ask us something, just shoot in the chat, no problem. As well as that John is going to be generously sharing the lick of the week for today. let me just welcome a couple more people. Hello, Patricius. I hope I pronounced your name right. I'm sorry. Hello, Phil. Name easy to pronounce. Our old buddy from the Blues Week, and a musician himself of the old time country blues and early music. Richard Knott. Amazing. So many blues people coming this evening. You guys are so welcome. It's great. All right, let me play you this welcome song. And it's going to be something that I'm going to be dedicating to, of course, all of you, but also to John Miller, because I know he's also a big fan of Bo Carter. And here's a song that I recorded with Sam Mitchell in the mid-90s. Ants in My Pants. Unfortunately, without Sammy's slide here, but we'll do the best we can. So here we go. It makes no difference, baby, where you go. I got something I want you to know. I got ants in my pants, baby, for you. It is tomorrow, it's early or late. Meet me, little darling, and give me a day. 'Cause I got ants in my pants, baby, for you. Put your arms around me, baby, like you should. I'm telling you, baby, your loving is good. I got ants in my pants, baby, for you. Put your arms around me, baby, like it should. I'm telling you, baby, your loving is good. I got ants in my pants, baby, for you. Well, guys, I gotta admit something. Out of this excitement that I'm gonna be bringing in Johnny into the live stream, I forgot to put this angle, so you can really see what I was playing. So let me just do this first verse again. Okay. There's actually another verse that I haven't sung here, so let me do that one. All right. Every time I see you, baby, walking down the street, how funny feeling from my head to my feet. I got ants in my pants, baby, for you. I got ants, many ants, in my pants, baby, for you. All right, that was embarrassing, but that's what happens live. Good, let's see who else is here. Hello from Wantage, Graham, also one of the Blues Week participants. We're going to be presenting the Blues Week program, where both John and I are going to be teaching this year in August, late July, beginning of August. So we're going to tell you some more about that. Hello, Banjo Playing Son. Good to see you here as well. Hello, Philip. And Tasia. Tasia, who is a vibraphone player. She's playing these Bats. Absolutely. Marimba. Right. So I think we should start with the real content for today. I'm really happy and really honored to have John as the guest in our live stream. So, welcome, John Miller. Great to see you
Thank you,
here.
Mac. It's nice to be here, and thank you for asking me to join you on your live stream.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So we go, well, we're both a little bit, older gentlemen, so I cannot say that we go way back, you and I, but we do go back like 20 years. In 2003 was the first year I joined the crew at the Blues Week program. So that's where we met for the first time. Exactly.
Yes.
So I can say I've known you for quite a long time, and you've been one of the people that I actually listened to especially in the late '80s when VHS tapes started to be available in my old home country of Yugoslavia at that time, which is now Serbia, where I come originally from. So we didn't get too much material. And that's actually something that I would like to start this conversation with you about. And that's that when you were young and you were around 12 when you started attending the live events and fooling around with playing the guitar a little bit, and everybody from this live stream can read on your website. It's johnmillerguitar.com, and I guess most of them were there already. So the biography says that you started at the early age, and at that time there were no videos. You could either see them live, those masters, old masters rediscovered in the 60s and 70s, or you could just listen to the records. So was that something particular with you, how you developed your ear to recognize what is being played, where, on the neck, which tuning, and all that? How did you develop that skill?
Well, it was, uh, yeah, it's sort of like there's an old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And so, and so at that time, just as you say, Mac, there were no instructional videos. There, uh, even the use of tablature was in its infancy. I mean, it wasn't common at all as a way of communicating the music. And so it was very much as you describe it. You either learned from watching someone or possibly having in-person lessons, or you picked up things off of recordings. And that's how I learned. I was fortunate uh, that I did get to see many of the rediscovered blues musicians in person, um, which was great. But it wasn't a situation really where I could actually spend time with them. You know, it was like in concert performances or at a coffee house. And so I learned from records, and I just basically taught myself how to tell what playing position somebody was working out of by ear. And I don't mean to give the impression that uh, I didn't make mistakes along the way. I certainly did. For instance, give you an example. John Hurt's version of Spanish Fandango. When I originally figured that out, I heard it as being in A in standard tuning. And so I figured it out in A. And then I didn't know there was such a thing as open G tuning or Spanish tuning. Uh, and then later on, I realized, oh, wait a second, he's not playing that in A, he's playing it in open G tuning. And it was like drastically easier to play in open G tuning than it was
Yeah.
in playing it in A in standard tuning. So, uh, you know, there is definitely an element of trial and error in learning that way. But the great thing about learning that way is you have a more informed context because you know why what is correct is correct, and you also know why what is wrong is not right. And so I think there's a lot to be said for it. Rather than always receiving the correct version of something, you, you haven't made the mistakes, so you can't learn from them.
So, but how did you deal with this feeling of being mesmerized by somebody's knowledge, musicianship, somebody's such a high level of presentation of this old time music and everything? Because I remember when I talked to, let's say, Alvin Youngblood Hart, we were at the Mojo Club in Copenhagen, and we were hanging out at Scott Beretta's home. Scott was at the time editor of the Swedish blues magazine called Jefferson, and then just on his way to start being the editor of Living Blues magazine. And he had this, fantastic collection of records and everything. And we were listening to Blind Lemon Jefferson, and then Alvin said, "Man, when I listen to Blind Lemon, it's like somebody shot me with a shotgun." So that was his reaction to that. It was so overwhelming, and those old crappy records where you really hear a lot of scratching and everything, we don't hear that. We just hear the music behind it, right? And then I remembered that you also told this story somewhere online that Blind Lemon had this fantastic degree of nicety when he plays. Could you expand on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, because Lemon is a person who, according to persons who knew him, he busked a lot, playing on the street, and for contributions. And typically, people who busk a lot tend to play really hard from the right hand because
Exactly.
they have to project and be heard. And if they're not heard, they're not going to make any money. But Lemon is unusual for a person who busks a lot in that he he never had a sort of what I call a crashy sound. A lot of times when people play on the street a lot, they play so hard that the strings sort of bottom out. The sound gets kind of rattly and buzzy. Lemon never sounded like that. He's just clean as a whistle. And he also, which is unusual in the music, there's a tendency, I mean, there are many, many wonderfully strong players in country blues, obviously, but it tends not most often to operate within a wide dynamic range. Um, it's it's a fairly flat dynamic, strong but even. Well, with Lemon, his dynamic range is huge because he'll do things where it's almost like instrumentally, he's almost like whispering for a moment, and then the next thing you know, the sound will just pop out at you, and it's and so he worked with a very very wide dynamic range, which is quite unusual.
Exactly. The right hand uh, softness, so to say. The attack of the picking hand doesn't have to be right hand, of course. But there was this. I think it was a forum post many years ago that I read about the microphones that have been used in the late 20s and the 30s when the microphones were actually compressing naturally. When you play very softly, they would kind of emphasize those notes, and then when you pick hard, they would kind of limit it in a special way. So many people were listening to these old recordings and thought that people were playing like that really, but in real life, let's say if they would be in the room with them, then they would also realize that many of them really had some great dynamics. And there was sound engineers that would really nerd out about that, discussing, let's say, Bessie Smith's recording where she was the closest to the microphone. Then when she sang, nobody heard the orchestra. Well, of course, because the microphone compressed so much that he just let her voice be heard and recorded. And then when she stopped singing, then all of a sudden the band would come in with their fill-ins and all that. All right. So that leads me to the next question. actually two questions in one. And maybe if I would, let's say, when I listen to you play, and it doesn't matter which song you play, if it's an early jazz song or arrangement of a jazz song or country blues, whatever you play, you have two things. You have the groove, which is the essence of everything. Then you have I mean, I'm not trying to analyze this to death. It's not that, but just you treat the guitar as an orchestra. The basses have their role, chord shapes have their role. Then comes this melody. How did that occur to you? When did you start treating the guitar as that's everything you got, and then started to do these arrangements?
Well, I, I certainly was influenced by musicians that I admired. Starting with Mississippi John Hurt, but also Mance Lipscomb, Bo Carter, a lot of Blind Blake,
Oh
and
yeah,
uh, you know the one of the hallmarks of that style is that because it is a solo style, the the guitar part has to be self-sufficient and contain all of the information
yeah,
that perhaps an orchestra would provide in an orchestral accompaniment. So, the thumb characteristically takes care of the bass, the fingers play the melody. In the interior strings, you're getting the harmony, the chords, the chordal information, and as move from blues, which has a more, you might say, severely restricted harmonic vocabulary, to more early jazz or pop songs or standards, where the role of harmony is greatly expanded, that the harmonic aspect perhaps becomes more prevalent, and it's you want to make sure that you bring in the necessary elements.
yes. Okay. There's this. Okay, we'll take Jim Richard's question very, very soon. I'll just expand on this because I had this the four W's kind of rule that I really see with, or I hear that with many very accomplished players, and that's the questions that are answered. The four W's are what, where, when, and why. What's being played, where on the neck or where on the guitar, when the things are played, and why they're played. Because sometimes it just feels, everything feels so natural. There are these rules of dynamics of kind of maybe starting off a little bit slowlier, then speeding up, or that the whole arrangement, the chord shape or voicings should be maybe simpler in the beginning and then evolve into something just to keep the interest going and everything. And I think you're one of the best examples of that, how impeccable your arrangements are. Which leads us to the next question. I remember one lunch at the Blues Week with you, and we talked about coming up with the ideas. I remember that you actually showed me a lick that I could expand one of my ragtime licks with, and I was like, exactly, why didn't I think about that, right? So you said that the easiest part is coming up with the licks, with the ideas. Then if you decide to record the song, then you need to settle and decide on the arrangement, and then the real work starts to practice in that, so you can really be a master of all these things, and then to let go at some point and not exploring deeper and deeper and getting more and more licks, and then just okay, decide now. So when did you develop this skill?
Well, I I don't know if I could say exactly when it happened. I think that the formation of a sort of personal aesthetic or sense of how things should go is very mysterious. You kind of don't know what the source of it is, or why the things that really matter to you matter to you. But I, you know, I suspect a lot of it came from just my parents and growing up and the music that we heard in the household. And, my mother was a piano teacher and a classical pianist.
Yeah.
And so I think sort of everything that you experience early in life influences you in various unconscious sorts of ways in the formation of your sense of how things should go.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, let's bring in the first question is by Richard Rin. Do you have a sense from listening to records if a player plays hard or not so hard?
Sure. Yeah, it's usually pretty easy to tell.
All right, so here's a personal hello from Phil Thorne to John. So, hi, John.
Hey, Phil.
That's great. We'll be meeting you guys in the UK later on. Here's a question from Milovan from Ohio. I've just discovered your arrangement of Blue Moon. Is the tab for the song available for the Blue Moon?
Yes, it is. Yeah, on my website, in the section called Teaching, there's a list of songs that I've transcribed and describes how you would go about ordering lessons. I should say, with regard to that, I never sell tab by itself, only in the text of a lesson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fair enough. Of course, that's great. Do you write your tabs by hand?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, me too. I just never got to be friends with the various computer software that can do it for. No. Especially when I'm transcribing slide playing, it's very difficult to those glissando notes that are jumping over the measures and okay, I'll just do it by hand, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
Yeah. So Milovan also had one question that was that arose when he was listening to some players playing bluegrass with the finger picking style. There's this guy, Wayne Henderson, I think, if I remember the name well. He plays with metal thumb pick and two finger picks, and he plays this alternating kind of finger picking and playing the bluegrass runs. And you've played bluegrass in many different circumstances and with many bands and with some musicians that I really admire, like Russ Barenberg, Scott Newgard, and lots of other people. So did you ever yourself play bluegrass by playing fingerstyle and not using the flat pick?
No, I never did. And apropos of that, I would say that Wayne's approach, in fact, is quite unusual. It's not like there are a whole bunch of people doing what Wayne does. I mean, he's pretty much of a one-off.
Yeah. Well, there are two offs because there's one musician here in Sweden, a young prodigy of Tommy Emmanuel from the beginning. He was very much influenced by Tommy Emmanuel's playing, and Tommy's one of the people who could really alternate the thumb with usually with the index finger and just play some really fast runs like that. And then they were using a lot of open strings in between by jumping up and down the neck. And Emil is one of those guys who can play so seamlessly that you really don't, okay, is there a pick here? If you're not watching him play, that you can really mistake yourself by thinking, okay, he's flat picking here. No, he's not. So there are a couple of people doing that, but I myself, I'm also, if I play flat picking, if I play some bluegrass or old-timey hillbilly or something, Delmo Brothers, I just try to use my flat pick, and that's it. All right, so question out of curiosity. Do you have any routine when you pick up the guitar? And there's a reason why I'm asking this, so I'll explain better.
I don't, and maybe I should, but I don't.
No, you just pick it up and start playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because a lot of students, both people from the Blues Week and other students, ask me about this okay, how should I practice? What's the best practicing
Oh,
routine? And
yeah.
there's no general answer to that because people are different. But there's one thing that's very much in common with most of people asking this, and that's that they kind of end up playing the same old routine they've always played, the same song, the same lick that they already know really well, because the new lick is not really sitting there. It's not really, you know, they didn't really learn it. And this little distinction between, okay, I'm practicing and now I'm just enjoying playing, how would they switch between those? Do you get that question from your students?
Yeah, I do. What I usually advise students to do with regard to practice is begin a practice session playing something you know well. And it's both just to warm up, but also to remind yourself that you have this song that you know how to play already. Then once you're warmed up, go to the new song, the new lick, whatever it might be, and spend some time on that. And
Yeah.
then when you conclude the practice session, return and play something that you know well again. It just is a reward for having worked on this thing that
Mm,
possibly you haven't quite mastered yet. The other thing I
yeah.
would say with regard to working on pieces that are new is don't always play a song from beginning to end. Because when you practice a song that you don't know well from beginning to end, you spend too much time on the parts you already can play and not enough on the parts you can't play yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you have to figure out what parts are still giving you problems, excerpt them, give them special attention and practice. And I always advise people, however fast you're able to play a part you're having a problem with, always try to play it in time. So
Exactly.
if I'm having a hard time playing a lick that goes, say, okay, and in the context of the song, eventually you're hoping for a target tempo of, well, if you don't just expect to be able to play it at that quick tempo, play it slow. It's starting on an upbeat and it kind of going and one and two and three. So if I do a really slow count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, I can play it at that tempo,
Yeah.
but it's still in time. I don't think it's helpful to practice even short passages out of time.
No.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because if you get them in time at a slow tempo, then it's just a matter of bringing up the tempo, but all the interior relationships will remain the same.
Exactly. I remember Doc Watson saying in one interview that the thing you cannot play slow, you will never be able to play it fast. That's one thing. And then I've also discovered that I have this. I recommend people use the looping method, so to say, that you find the kind of safe speed of playing a lick or a phrase, then kind of take away like 30% of the speed, play it slowly, and then just repeat that same lick over and over again, like until you like fall asleep. Because
Yep.
okay, now you can do it, and then just increase the speed accordingly, and then you will be there eventually. But a lot of people are very impatient, and that's because not everybody has all the time in the world to play. And there's also a misconception when it comes to that. Let's say they look at professional players who, let's say, only play music and only maybe teach or only perform. And they've got all the time in the world. Of course, they're going to be practicing and be great. Yeah, just my take on that is that even as a professional musician, there are obligations, some things that one has to do during the day, everybody has a life, and then it's traveling, it's preparing for the show. Maybe sometimes you need to prepare like 7 or 8 songs for the next show, and so I'm not deciding on my time 200%. So I also have to find time slots when I can practice, and then it needs to be efficient enough so that I can improve the playing. So we are in the same driver's seat as many of the students that we're talking to who say, "Oh, I've got a job, I got a family, and I only have hour and a half in the evening to play." And that's where these kind of advice is really good. That's what you just said, John. So that's great.
Well, I think that another thing that occurs to me too with regard to practice is sometimes you'll be wanting to learn a passage, and it happens that the passage is difficult in both the fretting hand and the picking hand.
Yeah.
And it can be really difficult learning a passage that's difficult for both hands. And what I realized at a certain point is if you have a passage that's difficult in both hands, if you just drop the fretting hand and work out what the picking hand has to do in that passage, picking the appropriate open strings,
Mm-hmm.
and then get that going until you can play it absolutely flawless. The picking in time on the appropriate open strings, then reintroduce the fretting hand into the mix. Almost invariably, it's going to be drastically easier than if you tried to figure out the whole thing working both hands simultaneously.
Exactly.
Because the picking hand, I always think of the picking hand as being what I would call lizard brain. It's not something that, it's much more of a feel thing than a cognitive thinking things out sort of thing. And if you can get that picking hand to understand how the passage that you want to play is supposed to feel,
Exactly.
it'll be really secure. Whereas
Yes.
the fretting hand is much more, you know, sussing things out, thinking about it, figuring out the most efficient way to move between two positions and so on.
Yeah. That's exactly what I tell people when I teach slide playing, because when playing slide, there's this extra element of damping the strings that you don't want to be heard while you're picking, while you're gliding with the slide and vibrating at the same time, and the rhythm needs to be going. So I always recommend that people really need to think what they're doing with their right hand. There must be the reason why. Maybe these 4 Ws can relate to the right hand playing as well, like what to play, where to play it, which string to pick, when to pick them, and why. There's a reason some licks sound great on 2, 3 strings simultaneously, or just picked at the same time. And there are so many nuances there in between that the same verse can be played like 10 different times, 10 different ways when it comes to, let's say, just the picking hand, and then we come to the fretting hand and all the chord shapes. Okay, let me bring in one more question here by Ralph. Longtime fan of your Stefan Grossman DVDs. Do you have any tips for improvisation? I have transcriptions of Scrapper Blackwell instrumentals, but it is hard for me to play more freely.
Yeah, I would say a good way to think about improvisation is start out sort of doing a more free interpretation of the melody, assuming you're playing a song as opposed to an instrumental. With an instrumental, it's more an issue of just uh, working from your vocabulary, or just
Exactly.
working around and trying to find ways of moving through the progression that sort of speak in the musical language of the style that you're playing in.
Yeah.
And also uh, listen to great improvisers. Um, that's really helpful. And also transcribe solos that you admire, um, because you can learn so much by doing that. It's both great as a discipline in terms of being able to hear and figure out what something is by ear, but
Exactly.
also it provides insight as to how different people get around on the instrument, uh, some of which may not be intuitive to you, but if you figure it out, it's sort of like you're expanding your vocabulary as you do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very much related to when teaching slide guitar. People are so much after the licks. Show me more licks. I want to know more licks. And then, actually, my best advice is always to improvise over the melody. Just take one round of a solo where you just imitate exactly what the singer is playing, singing, but just play it on slide. Or if you're just playing a regular guitar, fret it and pick it, just the melody. Then if you do that like 10 times, then you're going to get some more ideas because, okay, now I know the melody. There are some other things that I can do. Exactly that approach I had with when I played this Bo Carter song, Ants in My Pants. The first solo was just the melody, nothing else. And
Yep.
yeah,
And I would say too, also, uh, it's you don't necessarily need to think of improvisation as coming up with something entirely different. For
no,
instance, when you listen to Mississippi John Hurt, when he does successive passes through a song, he he very seldom changes the fretting hand very much. But what he does do is his rhythmic placement of what his phrases.
hmm,
So, in other words, with Spike Diver's blues, if he starts out going, okay, next verse he may go, and
yeah,
so the left hand is precisely the same. The fretting hand is the same. It's just
yeah,
that you added some notes, you've nudged them around rhythmically so that they fall in different places relative to the pulse.
yeah.
And it's perhaps a more subtle way of improvising, but it's also accessible. You just have to alert yourself to the possibility of moving things around relative to the pulse.
Yeah, exactly. I also have a little tip there, a humble tip to Ralph as well when it comes to the picking hand. Because I've learned a lot from piano players. I've learned a lot from, let's say, Brownie McGee, the way he treated the bass strings. And let's say, especially Mississippi John Hurt and Mance Lipscomb was also a great master of that. This kind of the eighth note pre pick on before the beat comes, right? So and you, John, are the master of that when you play your jazz arrangements, because a lot of that is based on the picking hand doing this, right? The second and the fourth note, and then you go on with. But very often it's this little eighth note, and sometimes even a little swirl somewhere with a triplet or something before the beat, the one comes in, right? So one advice could also be that you maybe play one part of the solo where everything is really on the beat, and then just syncopate it a bit more, and then you will get more ideas along the way because it's going to open it for you. Okay, that's right, because if I play this note before the beat, I have the time to maybe move the hand to another position while this string is ringing, right? And I don't know, maybe if I could just go back to this one and okay, if I back off a little bit, no, it's difficult. But let's say let me just go to okay, this way you can really see it. So let's so. One more time. So basically, while one note is ringing, I have the time to move back to the first position, to the first fret, and just play something else. And just that's also a piece of advice to improvise with different positions of the same maybe chord on the guitar neck, and that will give you some combinations of open strings and a fretted note. John, you have this great lick when you played oh, which song was that? It's an E, and then you play this lick that goes. Something like. Right? It's the G note, the G string on the 6th fret, played together with the opener
Yeah,
second. That's apparent in many of the old country blues. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's a wonderful sound. Robert Wilkins used that in Jailhouse Blues.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Show us.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
I'm a sucker for partially open voicings.
Oh, I love this
Uh,
too.
yeah, where it's kind of playing in standard tuning like you might in an open tuning, and taking advantage of open strings, so that, for instance, uh, this isn't a blues really, but for instance, if I wanted an A major 9 chord, and then if I go like this, I've got an A6 9, and
Yeah.
then if I go here, I've got A minor 9 to A minor 6 9. But you can, those voicings just really send me.
Yeah.
I like the kind of voicings.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh,
Sometimes it's
but
called make deliberate mistakes. Just move your finger and just see what happens.
well, and uh, apropos of that, maybe if I think just where we are time wise, it might be a good idea if I showed this lick. Um, it, so Mac had told me
Hmm.
that he has a feature, lick of the week,
Yeah.
and the lick I'm thinking of is one where you're rocking between in a blues a 1 chord and a 4/7 chord, and it and one of the sort of emblematic places that happened was in Jim Jackson's Kansas City Blues, where he's going. Okay, so I'm fingering a sort of E partial here, just getting the 2nd fret of the D string with my 2nd finger, the 1st fret of the G string with my index, and then I'm picking the 6th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. So I have E, E, G sharp, B. Well, that's root, 3, 5, the notes of an E chord, E, G sharp, or B. Then to go to A7, the 4/7 chord, I just lift my index, changing that G string from G sharp to G, and I fret the 2nd fret of the B string, bringing the B in the E chord up to C sharp in the A. And I keep the low E in the bass the whole time. So then I have E, E, G, C sharp. And you can see that's like an A7 chord. I'm just not putting the root in the bass. I'm keeping that low E in the bass. Now, you can just sort of say, well, isn't it great the way that that lick fits in that one place on the neck? But if you think about it, if you understand how the voices move, let's think about it. Once again, the E was root, root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, root 3, 5. To go to the 4 chord, what did I do? I left the root where it was, I lowered the 3rd a half step, and I raised the 5th a whole step. So now, if I go to another chord, A, I've got A, 5th, E, A, root, C sharp 3rd. Okay, what's the 4 chord of A? D. So if I want to rock from A to D7th, what's our formula again? Leave the roots where they are, raise the fifth of that one chord 2 frets, and lower the third of the one chord 1 fret. So I've got root 5, root 3. So I'm going to raise this fourth string where the fifth is 2 frets. I'm going to lower the second string where the third is 1 fret. Okay. Similarly, if I looked at a D chord, I've got root 5, root 3. Root 5, root 3. Okay, the 4 chord of D is G7. Well, when I want to go to G7, I'm going to raise that fifth, which is on the third string, a whole step. I'm going to lower the third, which is on the first string, a half step, 1 fret. And so what you begin to realize is this lick that sits in this one place in the E chord so naturally, you can play it in a variety of different places. As far as that goes, you could play it in different places and still be playing it in E. If I play the bottom 4 strings, root 5, root 3, so I guess the lesson I would take from this is that it's really, really, really helpful to know how the chords that you're playing are voiced. In other words, does the root fall on a particular string? Does the third fall on a particular string? What string does the fifth fall on? Because then when you have a lick, you can say, oh, all right, well, I can go to another chord, and if I know where the voices are in that chord, I can make the necessary adjustments to get the version of the lick for that chord and that key. So that, I guess that would be my lick of the week. That rock between the 1 chord and the 4/7 chord.
Yeah, well, that was not the lick of the week. This was a lick of the life, because this can be applied to so many different chord shapings, and maybe I enjoy very much try to find the same, let's say, chord voicings in open tunings. Let's say the diminished chords in G, where you can actually play them with slide, and it really looks nice because you just move the slide a half step, a half fret back. It's like, okay, that's possible there. So thank you so much, John, for the lick. And now I have 2 more questions and 1 more greeting here. No, 2 more. One from Richard. He said, "Good to see you, looking well. Hoping to catch up this summer. It's been too long." Yeah.
It has been, Richard. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking
And
forward
then,
to seeing.
yeah, and then Tony Gamage, I hope you're coming to the Blues Week. And now, speaking of which, talking about the Blues Week, we have Michael Roach in the audience today as well. So 2 things that I'd like to ask you guys. The first is, if you don't mind, just to click on the like button for this video. And I'm live streaming every Monday at 9 p.m. So you're more than welcome to come back at some later point as well. So the Blues Week, I'm gonna do it this way. So John is still with us, and I'm gonna be asking him some more questions here, of course. But let's say just a short introduction to the Blues Week program. It's been going since 2001, if I understood right, and this program was developed from the beginning by Michael Roach, a great musician, blues musician, root musician from the States, who's living in the UK. So it's a great program with around 10 instructors who teach all aspects of blues guitar, singing. We used to have bass lessons, piano, singing as well, of course. Yeah. So this year is going to be the 20th Blues Week, and basically that's why I'm also returning to be the member of the staff and to contribute to this great gathering after the pandemic and everything. So this was the article in the Guitarist magazine after the first Blues Week, and here's John Miller, here's George Suroff, that's right, here's Philadelphia Jerry Ricks, there's Michael, there's me, Michael Messer, lots of more folks over there. So here's that picture a little bit bigger. That was my first year during the Blues Week, and this is how it actually happens, that after all the lessons that we take or give, we gather in the evenings and perform for each other. There are student concerts, the staff concerts, and then every group and every instructor presents a program by the end of the Blues Week where students prepare a song or two and perform for each other. Here's an old nice picture. Look at these two young gentlemen, John. This is with Michael Roach to my left, and Johnny Mars, fantastic harmonica player and singer. This is from the student concerts, and actually this is Tony Gamage, who is in the audience today. So, hey, Tony, good to see you even here on the picture. And this is from a late night jam with Philadelphia Jerry Ricks. And although I do look a little bit intoxicated here, I'm actually not. I'm just singing. I'm really into it because all of a sudden I realized that Jerry Ricks could play some serious flat picking. And we played some hillbilly stuff, Delmo Brothers, Browns Ferry Blues. It was fantastic. And he was really good at that, apart from being a fantastic blues player. Yeah. So that was just a little reminder of the Blues Week program. You can find it on internet. Just write in the search engine Euro Blues 2022, and you will get to the European Blues Association's website, where you can see and read all information about today's this year's Blues Week. It's at the end of July and beginning August, the first week of August. And both John and I are going to be there. So I have, I think, one more question or two more questions to John. Don't take it too philosophically, but what did you learn about yourself as a person by working as a musician or being a musician, and what did your musicianship teach you about yourself? You've been playing for like 59 years, if I counted well, from your age of 12.
Gosh, yeah. Well, I guess part of what you learn if you're a musician as a livelihood or vocation, it's pretty much the same as having a livelihood in other forms of the arts, whether it's, writing fiction or being a sculptor or a painter or whatever, in that when your work is a creative endeavor, it's sort of like you are your own work, because what you do comes from inside you, and you have to access it. And that involves looking inward a lot. And as a result, you may seem kind of lost in thought or abstracted sometimes, sort of possibly even sort of unreachable.
Yeah.
But it's just because you're trying to access what's in you to keep moving forward in what you do, and to continue to remain fresh and grow. And I think it's important for people who play music to, especially in these teaching situations like camp, to remember that persons who are there, who have their lives away from music, or their vocation or profession away from music, they have their own capabilities and skills that we would be completely lost in, and would not be able to function in many instances.
Yes.
So it's important to not to imagine that what you do is the only thing that people do, or the only thing
Yeah.
of significance. Don't get such a big head about it,
No.
because you're doing it because you love it. So uh, it's not like we're finding a cure to world hunger or something. It's it, we enjoy it, so we do it.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. One more ergonomic question. When you perform and when you play, you usually have this position of the classical guitar player. So you have your guitar resting on your opposite lap, on your left leg, and that's
Yeah.
why you play. Did you start doing that from the beginning?
No, I didn't. When I first played, I would play any old way.
Mm.
And sometimes really stupid postures. I mean, I remember lying on a couch and playing like this.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, in my, I don't know, mid 30s or something, I was playing, in a posture like that, and I got done playing, and I just got up and I went, oh God, my back hurts. And then I thought, of course it hurts, you moron. You had terrible posture. Yeah,
Exactly.
and so I realized, um, I've never been a classical guitarist, but I respect the tradition, and feel like, they figured some stuff out.
Yeah.
And what I found was, by putting the guitar on the left leg and elevating the left foot a little bit, a couple of things are achieved. One, my spine is perfectly straight. My spine is straight whether I'm leaning forward, whether I'm leaning back,
Yeah.
it's straight. Whereas if I'm like this, if I'm playing off my right leg,
Yeah.
my spine is twisted to begin with.
Yeah.
The other is, if you have the guitar so that the face of the guitar is not perpendicular to the floor, not like this, but tilted back so that the bass side is closer to your body, and the treble side is out a little bit, it puts the guitar at an angle where your wrist is completely neutral. There,
Yes.
the wrist is not twisted or torqued at all. It's completely straight. It's not being stressed. And for people who, have trouble playing a thumb wrapped F chord, for instance,
Yeah.
if you have the guitar like this, also with the head elevated slightly, it's so much easier to do that thumb wrap. It's
Yeah.
it's a cinch. So
Exactly.
I
That's
guess that,
great reasons for that. Yeah. I myself played the Resophonic guitars for a very long time, especially the trichomes. With those guitars, you either need to stand up and use the strap, or you have to sit down so that either you're on the sofa where the guitar is resting on the couch right to the right of you, or just to put it in between your legs and play like Bucka White or many of the old masters did with their Resophonic guitars. But I've seen people playing them traditional way as well. But I also changed my position. Most of the time I play, I'm standing up, even at home, and because I also developed some back problems, which were not related to guitar playing, but it really cured a lot when I started standing up. And of course, when you play a slide, then you have the much better angle of seeing what you're doing. If the neck is elevated a little bit like this, right? So we're up there. So there are always reasons. Just try to make yourself comfortable, folks, when you play the guitar.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's like the Hippocratic Oath. First,
Yeah.
do no harm.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so I make that the musician's oath first. Do no
Yeah.
harm.
Do no harm. Oh, we got a greeting here from Michael Roach from the Blues Week, Euro Blues. He still remembers that night with me and Jerry playing together. Yeah, it was great. It was great memories. I'm looking forward to coming back, definitely. So I think we'll need to wrap it up now, folks. It's 5 minutes past the hour, and we respect your time. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your Monday hour, whenever it is, during the day. UK folks are 1 hour before us here in Sweden. And John, you missed your lunch, so I think we're going to let you go and enjoy your lunch for the day.
Oh,
All
thank you,
right.
Mac, and thanks so much for having me and having me on your show. It's really been nice visiting
Thank
with
you so much. Thank you, John. It's been a blast, really. And I hope people will come back to the replay, because this is going to be on YouTube forever. I'll be making those chapters so that you can see when exactly, let's say, our conversation was and when the lick of the week was, so you can get back and just loop that part and learn from that, because there's a lot of things to learn from that progression that John just showed us. So thank you so much for that, John, and thank you for coming.
Oh, well,
All
thanks for
right.
having me.
All right, Arne. Thank you, Arne. I hope you were listening for this hour, and we have some more comments. So thanks a lot, John. It was great to see you from Poland. Good.
Hey, Patrick.
All right, guys. Let's wrap it up, and we will see you next week, Monday, 9 p.m. here on YouTube. Thank you so much, John, and I'll see you soon. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
take care, man.
Bye.
And it was in spring, one sunny day, my sweetheart left me, Lord, she went away. Now she's gone, and I don't worry, but I'm sitting on top of the world. Things could call me up, down and out by soul. Said, come back, Daddy, Lord, I need you so. Now she's gone, and I don't worry, 'cause I'm sitting on top of the world. Don't like my peaches, don't you shake my tree. Get out of my orchard, let my peaches be. Now she's gone, I don't worry, but I'm sitting on top of the world. I was in spring, one sunny day, my sweetheart left me, Now she went away. Now she's gone. I don't worry, but I'm sitting on top of the world. Now she's gone. I don't worry, but I'm sitting on top of the world. And it was in spring, one sunny day, my sweetheart left me. Now she went away. Now she's gone, and I don't worry, but I'm sitting on top of the world. She called me up, down and out by soul. Said, come back, Daddy, Lord, I need you so. Now she's gone, and I don't worry, 'cause I'm sitting on top of the